Welcome, rugby fans. Another weekend has passed. Lots of rugby matches to go over. The end of the Rugby Championship, Prem Rugby round 2, URC round 2, top 14 round 5. So much rugby, a lot of things to get to. My name is Joe Harrington. I am the FloRugby content manager. With me, as always, is Philip Bindon, our man in the UK. Philip, right from the top there, South Africa, they did it. First time they've won back-to-back. Number one team in the world. I wouldn't say it's cemented, but they look pretty good going in the Autumn Nations. What are your take on the Springboks after doing what they did?
Yeah, very impressive. I guess the biggest thing I can say, Joe, having been at Twickenham this past weekend, was even when Argentina were in front, it kind of felt like a non-event because the Boks just had so much dominance at scrum time that you kind of just felt physically they would get on top of the Pumas, and so it proved. I know in the end it was a very close match, 2 points, but Argentina scored, in overtime to close that gap. The Boks were by far the clear head and shoulders the best team in the Rugby Championship this year. That shock at Ellis Park, I think, brought up a lot of questions about where are we going with this team. And Rassi responded in kind. He's really turned the team over to the younger group. Obviously, they've still got lots of key leaders in terms of Peter Steph-Toy, Ibanez, Spezia, Khaleesi. But that back line looked electric. So as a Irish fan, I'm a little bit worried about what might be coming our way in November.
Yeah, the Athletes Lounge guys really nailed it. It's like, that lineup that they went to, really, I guess, in that the second half of the Springbok game where they just exploded, really changed this competition. I would say they kind of never looked back after that Springbok match. But yeah, I mean that lineup that they're going to have, uh, boy, it sure makes them look like the favorite. I know I said France at full strength, but man, after what we saw in the Rugby Championship, Springboks. I told you I'm going to ask you this question a lot, Philip. All right, what's your thoughts on the 2027 Rugby World Cup after watching that?
Oh, yeah, I think I've changed a little bit since the start of the Rugby Championship. It's hard to look past South Africa because they're going to have this group of sort of nucleus of players who have won World Cups, whether it's one or two come the next one. I mean, you think of someone like Damien Willemse. I think he's, still mid-20s and he's won 2 Rugby World Cups. He's going to be key for them at the next Rugby World Cup. They really are on for a three-peat. I mean, it's never been done before, and it'll be interesting. If you're going to back a team to do it, this is the team to do it. It's still a little far out. I think France, even though they kind of tend to flatter to deceive at World Cup, France, as you said before this championship, for me, are also a very strong team. But for now, the Springboks are my clear number one for the next Rugby World Cup, and they are deservedly the best team in the world at the moment.
So my question to you is: we saw Razzie make that change that flipped
Mm-hmm.
everything. Is there another country out there that can do the same thing, that can maybe throw a completely different lineup that'll make you change how you feel about that team moving forward?
Yeah, in terms of depth, France is the only team I think that can match them. England are getting pretty close, in my opinion. I think they're ready to explode into a good team. The concern is that England are always kind of teetering on being a very good team, and whether it comes true or not is another question. But for me, I think they'll be very good. And as an Irish fan, obviously that hurts to say, but I think they will be very good. Ireland really need to turn the team over now. They won't necessarily straight away in November. I think Andy Farrell will start drip feeding in new players. I can think of tons of positions. I think. And look, it's the biggest debate in Irish rugby at the moment is who plays fly half. For me, I mean, Jack Crowley is a mile ahead of Sam Prendergast, and it's not even that close. I think Prendergast has such a high ceiling too, but so does Crowley. So I think that's a key decision for Ireland. And in the pack, they've got a lot of new guys coming in. Peter O'Mahony's retired. Cian Healy's gone. Conor Murray's gone. So, in that group, there's quite a few changes. So Ireland are a team who I think could put out 2 teams that would be very strong. France, England. New Zealand, for the first time, I don't think the All Blacks can do it, actually, when I look at them on paper, because there's still question marks about where they are at, key positions like fly half. And as I kind of said last time we spoke, Joe, I really have a feeling that the All Blacks should maybe switch how they play to being more like France, where their number 9, Cam Roygaard, takes control of most of the decision making and then have a facilitator at 10, because there's a few guys who could do that. I think at the moment, Springboks are quite clearly number 1 for me. France are the second team, and then you've kind of got that bundle of England, Ireland, New Zealand. I still think Australia are a tier below them too. Argentina, yeah, maybe same thing, a little tier below.
What is your panic level for the All Blacks now after seeing what we saw? Because it was, I mean, they beat South Africa in Eden Park. Okay, they beat they swept Australia. They took a win off everyone, but boy, was it not all that inspiring.
Yeah, my panic meter is probably a 7.5 right now. I just think that this All Black team, that there were injuries, but every team plays with injuries, and you would never have heard the All Blacks of old saying, "Oh well, we got injuries, that's why we can drop these results." Just wouldn't happen. I think Scott Robertson's under a lot of pressure. In fact, I know he's under a lot of pressure. I don't see them as World Cup contenders in 2 years' time, purely based on the talent coming through. Look, they had a good under-20 crop this year, but the last before that, few years before that, were not good. So I think they are. I think they're part of that second tier. So if I have those tiers of, say, South Africa and France in that top tier, then you've kind of got Ireland, England, New Zealand in that next tier. So they're still a very good team. Scott Robertson's proven with the Crusaders to be a very good coach, but I just don't think it's quite working for him yet at test level. So yes, I don't see them as contenders just yet.
We talked about this coming in to the Rugby Championship, and it's wild to me that we're still talking about this, but I feel like I have not seen the All Blacks play a really complete game under Scott Robertson. Maybe they had Ireland game last year in the Autumn Nations where they beat them. But at the same time, it just feels like they should have crushed France in all three of those games, and they did not do that. And they did not have a match like what the Springboks had against them in this Rugby World Cup. I guess one of the Argentina games was pretty out of hand, but just seems like we've not seen them put it all together, and we know they're extremely talented.
Yeah, and it's funny again, without being accused of being a homer here. That Ireland match, Ireland were leading when they took Crowley off, and then everything imploded. Frawley, Kieran Frawley, who's a player I very much rate, had a terrible day and dropped a high ball that kind of gave the All Blacks a bit of momentum, and then it was a lot tighter than probably people remember it, just because of there was quite a lot of hype going into that match, a grudge match after what happened in the quarterfinal. But you're right, the All Blacks aren't blowing teams out. Yes, that Argentina game in round 1 was something else. But bear in mind, they got thumped the next week by Argentina. That Eden Park match, it's all easy with hindsight. If Rassie had made the changes a week before, that they lose that match at Eden Park. Make no mistake, that team that beat them in Wellington thumps them in Eden Park too. It was just Rassie hadn't turned the team over at that stage, and that was a tight match. I think the Wallabies, again, it goes back to that point I make. I think the Wallabies are quite a bit further off what people think they are. It's great that they are improving. They're certainly a coming force, and they had a lot of injuries by the end of it, and they don't have the depth to offset that. And I think Joe Schmidt will make them even better this time next year. So the All Blacks just have a hoodoo over the Wallabies at the moment, which they don't have over the other big dogs in the top of the world ranking. So November is going to be very interesting indeed.
So to put a bow on the Rugby Championship, flowers to South Africa. They won it. First time they've won it back to back. I think they join New Zealand as the only team to do that of the four. So look, they've been arguably the best international team almost for a decade now. They won back-to-back World Cups. They've now won back-to-back Rugby Championships. Springboks, the future is bright, but then they also have this golden era, so that's pretty cool. Apologies to Ireland. They can't be in this conversation as the best team over the last decade because they haven't won the World Cup, unfortunately.
True. Yeah. The proof is in the pudding. This Springbok team is the best team of at least the last 6-7 years. They're phenomenal. They're absolutely phenomenal. And I see people going, oh, they're not as good as the great All Blacks team of old. Yes, they are. This Springbok team is as good as the All Blacks team. For me, it took winning this Rugby Championship to get them over that tilt. So, and I don't see them losing the Rugby Championship for gosh, I don't know how long. I know that the format's a bit different. Obviously, they've got that New Zealand tour next year, with New Zealand coming to them. So, yeah, I don't see them losing the Rugby Championship for a while. And at the moment, they're odds-on favourite for the next World Cup.
Well, so FloRugby, we streamed the United Rugby Championship a few years ago. The South African teams joined the United Rugby Championship. Do you feel like that is going to just improve the Springboks even more going forward, that their players are going to be playing in this European competitions more? We love Super Rugby, but it is a different competition playing up north, and you got to imagine that that's also going to help them.
Yeah, I think so, Joe. I think the URC is a phenomenal competition, and also, don't forget we've got the Investor Champions Cup and EPCR Challenge Cup for them to play in on that, and just the time zones work better financially. It's better. They're now stakeholders in the URC, so I think it's going to be really good for their game and growing depth. And you can see quite a lot of these senior Springboks are starting to go home. Andre Pollard signed for the Bulls this year. If the Stormers can hang on to the likes of Sasha Feinberg-Gomezulu, that's really important. So I think it's huge, and I'm really hoping that the South African franchises get to the point of, that sort of financial might of the European teams. So yeah, I really think it's a huge deal for them to be in the URC. And I don't think Super Rugby. I really love Super Rugby. I think they're missing the South Africans more than the South Africans are missing them.
And Super Rugby is coming off a phenomenal season. They were awesome last year. So that is one thing I can look at and say, I have some hope in both the Wallabies and the Springboks, because Super Rugby was really competitive last year. I think Les Kiss is going to do a great job with Australia. And like you said, we know Scott Robertson's a great coach. We saw it in Super Rugby. I think that both of those teams are going to be good, but it definitely seems like when you go through such a grind playing not just the level of competition where you're playing the French teams and the English teams and the Champions Cup, but it's a long season for those, and you see a lot of different types of rugby as you would in the other league that doesn't go to the international competition like that.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, we are less than a month away from the Autumn Nations, the next big international competition. I was talking to someone the other day at FloRugby, and they were trying to judge, like, is it Six Nations, Rugby Championship, Autumn Nations? Which one's your favorite? Obviously, I think the Rugby Championship is great because you play twice, and the Six Nations is great because it's the longest and has the most traditions. But the Autumn Nations is one of my favorites because you see so many different teams that just aren't the Southern Hemisphere stalwarts, the tier ones, and the Northern Hemispheres. Like, we're going to see Scotland host the Eagles in November. We're going to see Ireland play New Zealand in Chicago. That's just week one. What's one match that you're looking at the Autumn Nations that you're just really excited about? I know which one it's going to be, and the caveat is that it can't be South Africa and Ireland. So outside of that one,
Oh, you got me there. Okay, you saw it coming. Obviously that Chicago match is going to be phenomenal. It was the first time Ireland beat New Zealand back in 2016 when they played in Chicago, and also the first time I think the Cubs won the World Series in about 100 years, I think it was.
Yep.
So that's a huge clash. I'm going to go away from obviously my own bias here. France, South Africa, week 2. Jeepers, that's going to be a heck of a clash at the Stade de France, and it's one I'm really hoping to get myself over for, because it is going to be phenomenal. The last time those two teams played there, we all know what happened. South Africa edged France out of the World Cup in that quarterfinal, and what a clash that was. I mean, quite possibly, obviously on a par with that All Blacks Ireland game, the two best games of Rugby World Cup history that weekend. So that is the big one for me. Obviously, with the US tilt, I'm really excited to see what Scott and his Eagles do against Scotland. Bearing in mind, it's not that long ago that the Eagles did beat Scotland. Obviously, they lost them last season. It'll be really interesting to see how that goes. This Eagles team is going to be a new look side with a lot of experienced guys stepping down. So kind of a nice sort of look at where they are. I'm calling this sort of part 2 of their World Cup journey, because now the qualification is secured. Scott can really bed in a few different things. So that's a really interesting one. Yeah.
We had Scott in the office for one of the Athletes Lounge broadcasts. Man, I was so impressed by Scott. And I'm really bullish on USA Rugby now Man, it's such a mountain to climb what they have, but I think they really are going to be in position uh, to really have a great 2031 Rugby World Cup. I think they're going to be competitive in 2027 if they can go out and hang with Scotland, who's going to be fielding Finn Russell, who's going to have Blair Kinghorn. I mean, we assume they're going to have their stars, and it's going to be in Murrayfield, which I know Scott's really excited to coach in. He was telling me that during the week he was here. Man, I'm really excited about USA Rugby moving forward. I think that what Scott is saying, it's not always about the results; it's about what happens on the field. And I think they're going to have a good day there, whether they win or lose. I think that's going to be really good for them moving forward.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think again, like I think we're all big fans of Scott. Obviously, we kind of highlighted that there's nobody better positioned to really lead the Eagles in terms of that intimate knowledge of USA Rugby, being a world class coach. It's a nice combination. And what I really like about Scott is, as someone who's done a master's degree with the performance analysis side of things, Scott really looks at the numbers. And it's not necessarily wins and losses for Scott. A lot of people might just watch a match on face value. Obviously, coaches don't do this, but a back row might get through tons of work that people don't see. Scott rewards that sort of stuff, and you can see it in his selections in terms of the players he continually backs. So yeah, really excited to see that. And actually, I've got a bold prediction for November, but I'm not sure if we want to get to that just yet. But yeah, no,
Well,
I'm looking through the fixtures. I've got one here. Yeah.
I've got my two fixtures in the first two rounds that I'm really excited to watch
No.
outside of the obvious matches and the match we've already talked about. I thought the England Australia match last year in the Autumn Nations was one of my favorite matches I've ever watched. Australia stunned them. They're playing England again in Twickenham. I think that is going to be a raucous match, especially they're coming off Australia's coming off the Rugby Championship where they beat South Africa. We obviously don't know what the teams are going to be there. They're probably not going to have. They're not going to have Tom Wright, who made that big play last year against them, but they're probably going to have Will Skelton for that game, I imagine. Um,
Mhm.
I think that's going to be a way bigger match for England, coming off the Lions tour and coming off what we saw them in the Six Nations. Um, the next match I'm looking really forward to. I mean, we've just breezed by the Ireland New Zealand game in Chicago. We're all really excited about that, but it's the next New Zealand match that I'm excited for because we talk about Scotland all the time about how this is a golden era of Scotland. They're going to be coming off the USA match, and now here comes New Zealand in Murrayfield, the Haka and the Lone Piper at the top. Are you kidding me? I'm excited for that match.
Mate, in terms of vibes, off the charts. What a match. Yeah, Murrayfield's awesome. It's a little bit outside Edinburgh. You get a little train down, but it's a heck of a stadium. It's really cool. It's very similar, obviously. Cardiff is right. You've got the Millennium Stadium, or the Principality, sorry, now right in the middle. Those are two great rugby cities. This is what makes the Six Nations. We talk about those sort of competitions so special. And when you bring the All Blacks, as you said, with the Haka at Murrayfield, it's going to be an awesome, awesome match. And if Scotland are ever going to beat New Zealand, now is the year. I mean, it's you really look at it.
I
Yeah.
mean, if they could lose to Ireland, and I don't think people in New Zealand will flip out. But if New Zealand loses to Scotland, then I think we're in danger zone with Scott Robertson and what
Mhm.
that New Zealand team is going to be. That said, like we talk about it all the time, Scotland has the ability to beat anyone on any day because
Mhm.
they have the stars. They should have been in contention to win the Six Nations in the last round last time. So I'm really excited about that match.
Yeah, I think they're going to be emotionally so up for that match. And to be honest with you, if I was watching Scotland play Ireland, South Africa, France, I think it's really difficult for them just with the physicality. But against New Zealand are obviously a very physical team, but I don't think they are what they were. So I'm really hoping Scotland does it. I think it'll be a phenomenal result for them. And like you said, they've hovered and they've threatened to really, really be a top tier team, and they've been really punching above their weight for the last 5, 6 years. They've got a golden generation. now's the time to capitalize on it. But
Can
yeah.
Let's just take a pause too, because we have talked an awful lot about struggles for New Zealand. But let me tell you, this is who New Zealand's playing in this championship. They got Ireland in week 1, the Scotland in week 2, week 3 they've got England. Are you kidding me? And then week 4, I mean they got Wales. Okay, but I mean that's a brutal setup. Ireland, Scotland, and England. The 3 best teams in the Six Nations. Well, I guess they're not playing France. Wait a second.
Yeah, they don't have France
Yeah,
this year, but
I mean
yeah,
that's
no, that's it's a tough one. I could see them feasibly losing 2 of those. Maybe, like you said, imagine they lost all 3. I don't. I've never seen the All Blacks lose 3 in a row that I can remember. Well, no, that's not true. It's definitely happened recently, but I mean, to lose 3 in November, gosh, yeah, it's unimaginable. That Chicago match is going to be really interesting because Ireland going into it, it's a weird one because you've got to remember they're going to be missing loads of British and Irish Lions. The international guys will probably have played 2 rounds of URC by then. So how battle hardened are they going to be? Can New Zealand catch them on the hop and really beat them? Certainly can, but it'll be interesting to see. I think that the toughest one for them is actually going to be at Twickenham against England. I think England are going to put a score on them actually this year. I think England will physically beat them up. So yeah, that'll be really interesting to see. I think
I'm
the Ireland one is a coin toss. Yeah,
I'm looking at the
favorite.
I'm looking at the English schedule, and that's exciting too because even a match like England played Fiji a couple of years ago, and Fiji beat them right before the World Cup, and
Yeah.
they played some bangers there. It's a tall task for Fiji to beat England this year. I would
Mm.
say, especially in Twickenham, but
Yeah.
obviously, Autumn Nations not streaming on Flow, but we'll be covering that competition. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you need to check out a lot of these teams, they did stream on Flow during the Rugby Championship and in July. So take a look at that. And all the players, almost every single one of these superstar players, aside from some of the teams in the Major League Rugby, some of the players there for USA, they've streamed on Flow, so you can get to know these players. If you really want to know the French teams, like all of the French stars are pretty much playing in top 14, like Damien Panoma's
Mm.
out there. Um, so, yeah, do not miss the Autumn Nations. It's going to be really fun, and that starts November 1st.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're gonna have some great live blogs for that too. So definitely not to be missed on that side of things. And I mean, in terms of talking about the top 14, just very briefly, Joe, our guy Jack Iscaro, the USA Eagle, has just gone over to the top 14 on a as a short term contract, which is huge from New England. So I believe it's Stade Francais he's going to. So yeah, you're gonna have some Eagles on display there. David Ayanu's at Toulouse. So some really good USA players there. But yeah, on November, before we obviously move on, my bold prediction is that Wales are going to beat Argentina in week 2. I think Wales are not as far away from pulling off a bit of a comeback as I thought they
Oh,
would have been this
wow.
time last year,
From
which
losing
would
to
mean,
Japan to beating Argentina, there we go.
oh yeah, no, I
That is
think
a
they
hot
beat
take.
Argentina, they beat Japan, and then I think they well, they'll
We need some
definitely lose to
graphics
South
of flames
Africa.
to go up when you say this, when we edit
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, no, I'm just watching like, even we're only 2 rounds into the URC, but just the way some of their players are performing, and they really are, I think, not quite as far off as
Well,
we might all
you've
think they
talked
are.
about this. Like, we aren't that far removed from them being the best team in the world. What was it, 2019 they were
Yeah.
number one?
2019, yeah, ranked number 1 in the world, and people, they went to 2 Rugby World Cups and semi-finals in relatively quick succession. So they've been there thereabouts, and Wales is just such an incredible rugby nation. I can't explain to people who haven't been to sort of the Principality on a match day. There's nowhere like it. The Welsh just love their rugby, and yeah, I just really want to see them back at their best. And I think they beat Argentina, and I think they beat Japan.
Well,
And then maybe just wave the white flag for South Africa. Maybe just say, let's just miss this one, guys. Yeah.
okay, well, we were talking about the top 14. It's a good segue there because the 5 can't miss club matches this week. So this was one of the most difficult weeks to pick it because there is the obvious one, and then there's the new one to flow. So we wrote the article and gave our club match of the week to Bath, Gloucester in the Prem Rugby because that is a huge rivalry we've never had on Flow. Really excited about that. But obviously, if you can watch only one match this week, I think the answer is definitely the rematch of the top 14 final, Toulouse, Bordeaux. Philip, you told me, you messaged me, and you are not like hardcore top 14 fan. All right. You messaged me after that and said, I think that was the best club match I've ever seen when they played in the final.
Yeah, no, absolutely phenomenal, Joe. Sorry.
What's your take on this game this week?
Yeah. How about this? Fourth versus fifth at the moment in the top 14. Both sides have had some weird results to start the season, but it's funny with teams that are this good, you almost just discard it and go, they're going to be fine when it's all said and done, and they absolutely will. I think, yeah, we could be looking at a sort of a preview of the final this season. My outside bet is Bayonne, who are obviously top of the table at the moment. They've been doing really well, and obviously beat Toulouse. This is going to be a hell of a match. What a cracker. Obviously, no Antoine Dupont just yet. Not far off from my understanding. I think it's December he'll be back. But both sides are just stacked with stars. I think this is going to be a really intriguing match. Both sides have won 3 so far, lost 2. So, like we said, not really on the hottest form. I kind of touch in, obviously. I obviously really do track the top 14 a lot. I watch a lot of the highlights, and I try and watch at least one of the big matches sort of for the full 80 a week. But, Bordeaux have already put up 70 odd points, I think, in one of the weeks. Yeah, Bayonne in week 3. So, and Toulouse have put up some cricket scores too. So, it's coming. I think it's going to be, a real precursor.
Montauban gave up 84 this past week.
Yeah,
But they're
they're in a
trying.
world
It's
of
their
trouble.
first year. They got promoted this year. So give them some time, but you can't give them that much time because the last team that got
No.
promoted isn't here anymore.
Yeah.
Vaughn's got demoted.
Yeah, it's like a little yo-yo at the bottom. Weirdly, they're still ahead of Perpignan, but you look at the points difference, they've got a minus 130 points difference. As soon as Perpignan win a match, that's going to switch. So, it's going to be an interesting one on that.
So obviously, our
But,
match of the week that we named at FloRugby this week was the Bath match against Gloucester. Explain why that rivalry is big and why you just throw the
yeah,
records out.
that West Country derby throws up some incredible matches. That's what I love about the Prem, probably more than pretty much any other competition. The top 14 has it too because of the age, but that West Country derby is massive. You've got a little pocket of really good teams in terms of Bristol, Bath, and Gloucester, all right next to each other. You can just almost literally a stone's throw away, really quick drive. So it can throw up some really interesting results that you don't necessarily see coming just because of form almost doesn't matter quite as much. It's at the Rec in Bath, so I'm backing the champions to do it, especially with Gloucester being a little bit sort of out of form. They've kind of been in every match, but they've lost both so far to start the season. 2 points to Northampton last week, obviously, and fairly heavy loss to Sale in round 1. So I'm thinking Bath will do it, but again, it's one of these weird rivalry matches that you just never discount the opposition.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you 5, and I just wanted because these are the 5 I think were the best matches. You told me this at the start of the season. Munster and Edinburgh, they don't like each other.
Munster Glasgow, we
Oh,
were
Munster
close,
Glasgow.
Joe. Yeah, no, Munster Glasgow, but Edinburgh had some spiky matches with Munster. Yeah, Munster Glasgow's a weird rivalry. It's got to be the biggest non-domestic rivalry in the URC. But
Well,
yeah.
look, we can use some editing magic to help me out on there.
Oh no, I have that on my list of top 5. Don't you worry. It's number 4 for me at
Well,
this
I
week.
think Munster Edinburgh is going to be a really great match. Whether it's a
Mm.
rivalry or not, I would say that it's a natural rivalry. Ireland and
Hmm.
Scotland there.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think that's going to be a
Oh, it's definitely a rivalry. Yeah,
and
yeah.
Edinburgh needs to pick up some wins here. I think they're probably catching Munster at a good time because I don't think Munster has all of their Lions back this week.
No, so we've only got Tyke Byrne, obviously, but he's out. He won't play for a while. Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's down in Cork, luckily, so it's a home match. But I wasn't. I mean, Munster won last week. They were very impressive in round 1 against Scarlets. Against Cardiff, they just conceded some easy points and some weird tries on that side of things. There was a bit of controversy about Gavin Coombs' try, which was overruled. So there was some stuff going on there. But yeah, it's a hell of a match. And Cork is, well, it's my hometown. So I think it's going to be a brilliant match down there. For Munster, going 3 out of 3 would be brilliant to start the season because they've notoriously been slow starters in this competition. Edinburgh obviously had their match last week postponed with Storm Amy over here. So they've only played one game so far, and it was a loss. So they'll be itching to get on the board. These two teams play each other tight pretty much all the time. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting match down in Cork, and it's on Friday evening our time, afternoon in the US. So it's going to be a good
2:45
one.
p.m. on Friday here in the United States Eastern Time. So, okay, the other two matches I have. Here's the one thing I'm loving about Prem Rugby is this league is so old, and there's only 10 teams. So all of these matches have a lot of history to them. But I'm really excited about Bristol Bears versus Exeter Chiefs. I think that's going to
Mhm.
be a really great match. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are right back to where they were. For Bristol, it'll be really interesting to see what Pat Lam does because they picked up quite a few injuries to start the season. Their halfbacks, obviously Harry Randall, IJ McGinty, Gabriel Ibitoye on the wing. There was some talk about other players in the back line. So it'll be really interesting to see how they manage that. But they're still such a good team, and this is the sort of stuff where you have to weather a storm to be contenders at the end of the season. So I think they will be. Exeter, what an improvement already this season. That what a jump back. And we knew it was going to come. We kind of spoke about it pre-season, just with the signings that they've made. I think they're going to be much more of a contender this season. They're obviously coming. They're sitting in
We
third at the
did
moment.
not
One win, one loss.
expect them to have a second back-to-back bad year. This was a team that was in
Yeah,
the Champions Cup semifinal not very long
yeah.
ago.
Yeah, and they won it not even that long ago, right? I know they turned over the team a lot, but they've won Prems and they won Champions Cup. And Rob Baxter is one of the best directors of rugby in the Prem, so he's much more hands-on again. So that'll make a big difference. Also, it's worth remembering Lenny Kitao and Tom Hooper, the Wallabies, will be joining that squad soon, so they're only going to get better. It's not like they're going anywhere. So yeah, really interesting one on the weekend with obviously the Bears and the Chiefs. I'm kind of, even though it's at Ashton Gate, I'm actually backing the Chiefs to do it. I think they'll cause the upset on the road on this one.
Yeah, another match I'm looking forward to in the URC, mainly because it's wild where Leinster is right now, and it's wild where the Sharks are right now. But then it's
Mm.
not that wild when you realize the Sharks don't have their international players, and Leinster's not playing theirs. But obviously, the Sharks in Dublin. Uh, that's on my list of a match to watch. How crazy is that match going to be just to predict after what we've seen?
Yeah, it's huge, Joe. It's huge. Whoever loses this one's in a bit of a hole, right? So I know that at least for the Sharks, they've got some points on the board with a draw away to the Dragons, which actually they were very fortunate to even get away with that. Leinster played much better against the Bulls, and even though they're missing, when you supply the bulk of the British and Irish Lions, your team's going to take a big drop. So they're going to be. Let's make no mistake about it. I know our power rankings. And no joy, maybe a little bit of joy for me. Our power rankings have them very low at the moment, just the way things are shaking out, but they'll be a contender come the end of the season. But to do so, they have to win this match, right, Joe? Because the following week is against Munster, what's going to be a sold-out Croke Park. That's not a gimme either. So if they don't beat the Sharks and pick up a bonus point here, they're in a bit of a hole and in a bit of trouble because I know the Bulls, I'm not sure how sustainable the Bulls style of play is, but I don't see the Stormers slowing down. I think Munster beat Edinburgh, and then suddenly you've got two teams you really want to chase down quite a bit ahead of you on the table. It'll be quite interesting to see how that goes. The Sharks, I think you and I not just to give a little bit of an inside behind the scenes of FloRugby. No team drives Joe Harrington up the wall more than his beloved Sharks. How are the Sharks not title contenders at any point in any competition?
It's,
Um,
look,
it's just mind blowing. So yeah,
we
I
had
mean, both sides are still going to have plenty of internationals this week. That Leinster team in South Africa was not as bad as people make it out to be.
we had
So
Craig Hunt on the Athletes Lounge. He's a former Sharks player. Some people that spent a lot of time in Durban were on the Athletes Lounge. They've just they're so top heavy with talent, and but that's what you want in rugby. I mean, I hate to say this, but they do remind me an awful lot of the Scottish national team, and they have a lot of skills, but they're not pulling it off. That said, they did win the Challenge Cup a couple years ago, so I mean, there's that. But I think the Sharks are going to be a team like last year. They're going to be a team to reckon with later in the season. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the depth, I'd expect Leinster to have way more depth in their team with their internationals gone than the Sharks. But yeah, you're right. I mean, no one wants to enter. Leinster doesn't want to enter the Munster match. With a 0-3 record? I mean, they don't want to. They don't want that. I think it helps that they're back home in Ireland this week after 2 weeks in South Africa. You mentioned it. Big match at Croke Park there. What should we expect from that match? Just looking ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously coming with a bit of bias, but it's if not the best club rugby rivalry, it's right up there. It has the record for the most attendance of a club rugby match, over 80,000. It's going to be close to that again at Croke Park. That is going to be, yeah, I guess fire and vinegar. I guess if you could mix the two of those together, it's going to be absolute chaos. It's going to be a really interesting telltale of where these two teams are. I think by then Leinster will have drip fed in a few Lions. I would hope for Munster Tyke Byrne might come back by then. Just because when you look, you peer around the corner and the All Blacks are then coming in pretty hot after that, aren't they? So there's not much time to get these guys up to speed for Test match rugby. So that's going to be as close as a club rugby match comes to a Test match, outside of when Leinster played UBB or Toulouse.
Phil, just a reminder to fans here: explain why these international players in the Lions aren't with their club teams yet.
Sure. So there's a player management element. So that it's mandated by World Rugby, but then there's also Irish Rugby are very good at managing their players in particular. Every nation's sort of getting to that. So players can only have so many contact minutes throughout a season, and because these guys who played for the Lions in particular, their season went so long. Say it would normally end in June, and it ended in, gosh, was it September? Really, it ended for them. So really they still need that stand down time to have rest and recovery and be ready to go just for their own well-being, which is brilliant. You have to have that in place. But it does mean at the start of the league season, actually as someone who really loves following the URC in particular and the Prem, it does allow a lot of younger players to get game time. So it's great, but it does mean that it gives the coaches a bit of a challenging sort of start to the season. When do they push them back in? The South African sides will be similar now in terms of when do the Springboks start featuring for, say, the Stormers or the Sharks, because they've just finished playing Argentina. So any of the South African teams are on tour at the moment. I doubt any of the Springboks will filter back in just yet.
I do love how Prem does it with the Prem Rugby Cup because it allows them to bring up their young players to play in matches for something that matters, but it's not the main league. I wonder if that's something to look at it, because the elite players, it's a year-round game. I mean, there's not stopping. Sure. I mean, there is only 2 weeks between the end of the URC and the start of the international season this year.
Yeah, I know you're bang on there, Joe. And when you look at France, right, they've got the Pro D2, so that second division where a lot of young guys learn their trade there, and then they come up to the top 14 clubs. So that's a very competitive league too. The URC is such a good league that it's obviously quite long, so the young guys will get time over the season. We used to have things like there was like the Anglo-Welsh Cup, and then there was the Anglo-Irish Cup and different things like that. I think from memory, where we did have second division matches, I'd love to see that coming back. From an Irish perspective, there's so much depth in the four provinces that young players sometimes don't get enough game time, which has been something that's really impressed me about Munster in particular. And at the start of this season, Clayton McMillan's rotated his squad and given sort of everyone game time, and a lot of teams have tried to take that approach. So, it's an interesting time in the season. I think by the time we get November out of the way, you then get, the senior guys probably get a bit of a rest again, and then it's Champions Cup stuff. So there'll be a bit of mix and matching, in particular through to January.
All right. Well, there it is. We've gone over our time limit, but that's all right. Lots to talk about. You can expect this every week. Philip and I are going to be breaking down the best club matches. We'll talk about some of the international matches. So next week, I would expect us to be talking a little bit top 14 after that Toulouse match. Philip, as always, thank you, and everyone, watch rugby this weekend on Flow Sports and the app and FloRugby.
Thanks, Joe. Always fun.